The Greater Toronto Area is home to more than 6 million people and is seeing a surge in gun violence in recent months. Since last Friday, 11 people have been shot, many in broad daylight, which has many people asking what's being done to stop it. Joining us now is CTV's public safety analyst, Chris Lewis. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So several of the shootings occurred in the downtown core of Toronto, very close, in fact, to our studio here. Is this unusual to see? Well, A, we've got a spike, but B, where these shootings are happening? Well,
I mean, it's all gang activity.
Okay.
And so you're not going to find gangs in the woods and sitting around riverbanks. You know, they're in the downtown core, and that's the reality of a major city. Yes, it's a spike, and we've seen spikes in the past in Toronto. Is this a long-time trend? Is this here to stay? That still remains to be seen. It's alarming, concerning for the citizens of Toronto. I totally get that.
So you said it was gangs. Toronto Mayor John Tory referred to it as a complicated network of gangs. And he said that there's a plan on hiring an additional 200 police officers. Is more boots on the ground the solution? Is it part of the solution?
It's part of the solution. I mean, you have to have enough police doing the right things and building trusting relationships with the community, working with kids, investigating crimes, investigating gangs. And you also need them out actually talking to gang members and so-called shaking them down. And there's legislative issues around that now that weren't there some years back.
What is the attraction to gangs for young Torontonians today that maybe wasn't the case a few years ago?
If I had the answer to that, I'd be a rich guy.
Yeah.
It's much like radicalization of young people. And we talk about terrorism. It's people that are coming from families with poor parenting skills. They feel disassociated in some way. They're lured by something that looks exciting, you know, and fun. Being in a gang, carrying a gun, and maybe getting killed is fun, then, you know, then I can see the lure, but I don't really get it. So there's a whole pile of issues there. And we don't even have cops in schools in Toronto anymore. I mean, that was a decision made to pull them out. So they're not building relationships with these kids and trying to show them that this isn't what you think it is. You might get killed if you get involved in these gangs.
You know, we've been watching this surge in gun violence in Toronto since really the beginning of June. You've referred to it as a spike. We'll have spikes in the future. But does that mean, if it's a spike, that it's something that we can't fight against? Is it, as citizens, is there anything that can be done?
Well, citizens need to feel comfortable speaking to the police and telling the police when they suspect something. Inevitably, when one of these things happens, somebody becomes a gang member or some kids radicalized. Somebody says later, oh, I could see that coming. But nobody wants to say anything. You have to have trust in the police, you have to have trust in the court processes, and you have trust that you'll be looked after and kept safe. You know, and similarly, in this, it's none of these murders are right. It's just all sad. But places like Baltimore that are 600,000 people are having 400 murders a year. You know, and Baltimore is not the worst in the United States. So now, there's a country with more guns than people, but that's not Canada. But at the same time, yeah, we're going through some tough times. Is that here to stay? I'm confident it isn't, but time will tell.
You know, in our research for this interview and this conversation, I saw that the number of illegal guns that's been coming into the country has been going up steadily since, I believe, 2012, which surprised me. And I have to think that that's contributing in some way to this violence that we're seeing.
Well, it has to be. I mean, to get a handgun in this country, you either have to be licensed with background checks and all of that. We have good gun control rules in Canada. Or you have to steal one from a legitimate owner, which isn't easy, or you have to bring one in from some other place. So they're coming in from the United States. And in the recent Toronto bust, there was 60 or 70 guns that they seized, and they were all seized down around Cornwall, in the Cornwall area. Where were they coming from?
Yeah.
They're coming from New York State.
Is there adequate communication between the Toronto Police Service and our Border Patrol Service?
Huge. There's huge cooperation between all law enforcement agencies, federal, provincial, municipal, and including border services. And so everybody's working together to try and stem this. Is more police the answer? Maybe in part, but the police doing the right things, building trustful relationships, in the schools working with kids again, and sharing intelligence. All that's happening. It just needs to be, there needs to be more of that, and it's bigger than that.
Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Anytime, Ben.